Hello, people. Let me know if you can hear me so that the settings are all good and everything. I know there's a bit of a delay here, so hey, Mibu. Blue Pencil 99 from Boston, USA. Good morning. Vintage and Rare. Hey, Nikolai, you there too? Cool. Antti, hey. Great. I'm still a bit nervous. This is the second time I'm doing this in my life. Yesterday was the first time and it went surprisingly well. So my hands were shaking afterwards. So, yeah, okay. Yesterday we talked about playability and calibrating your brain and with some kind of an item to use as help. Yeah, today let's talk more about sound, and basically the bottom line, the fundamental question we're talking about is that where does the electric guitar sound come from? What makes it? And if something isn't right, what should be changed or fixed? Or it might save some money if one understands the mechanics, how things work. Sometimes you'll understand. If you don't understand already, we'll get there. I'll walk you through this chain of reactions, what happens with the sound. And you can, if you disagree, tell me in the chat and we'll talk about it. So first there will be a little bit of a monologue by me and then we can discuss about it. Okay. So the first thing is that a lot of times you hear on forums, on people discussing that in electric guitar the wood doesn't matter, and because it's the string, the sound comes from the strings, and the magnetic pickup picks up the sound from the strings, not from the guitar. The pickup doesn't hear what's happening in the body or the neck or anything else. It just hears the string. And that's right. I mean, the reality is that the magnetic pickup doesn't hear anything else than the string. But the way the string vibrates, that's a whole different scenario. And that has everything to do with the rest of the guitar. It's like if we first, so we kind of, when we walk through this chain of events, now we're going to first observe electric guitar unplugged. We don't have an amplifier. We're just unplugged. We have the guitar, nothing else. And I pick up the guitar and I place it on my lap and I take a chord. And the strings vibrate. And then obviously when the string vibrates, that energy, well, first thing, unplugged, remember this, all the energy that is put into the guitar comes from my fingers. There is no energy coming from other sources. It's just my fingers. I put the energy to the string, it starts to vibrate, and then that vibration starts decaying away, right? Until I put more energy from my fingers to the guitar. That's the only active energy that goes into the guitar in the unplugged situation. So anyway, let's go back to the string. So I take a chord and the strings vibrate, and part of that energy that transfers through the contact points where the string is in contact with the guitar. Differently in different kinds of electric guitars, but typically from the nut at least, and then from the bridge. And in a guitar like this, where the bridge is, there's no tremolo or anything, so it's kind of direct contact from the bridge to the body. So part of that energy from the strings transfers to the body of the instrument, and through the nut, part of that energy transfers to the neck of the instrument, and this whole thing starts vibrating. So I have the guitar on my lap, and I take that chord, and I can hear whatever's happening, and I can also feel what's happening. I can feel it in my body that something is going on. And this is now the scenario that we're looking at. It is strictly from the perspective of the player that holds that instrument. The information that is going on in the guitar, unplugged or plugged, but in this case unplugged, it doesn't communicate, or it doesn't, if you're an observer next to the guy who's holding the guitar, if you're that guy next to the guitar, you don't, a lot of the information gets lost already there when you're not holding the instrument. So we're now looking at it from the plate. You're the player, you're holding the guitar, and something happens. Okay, the string vibrates, and part of the vibrations transfer into the instrument. And if I put those same strings, that same set of strings, to 10 different guitars, and take that same chord, holding the guitar on my lap, every one of those instruments is going to sound different. My experience hearing and feeling those strings and that instrument is different. So this is kind of defining, okay, the strings are the same, the chord is the same, I'm holding the guitar the same way, but everything else, the materials, hardware, whatever, is different. So, without a doubt, the unplugged sound that I'm experiencing is different in every guitar that I'm having there. So in that way, the idea of that, when we are now observing the unplugged situation, it's not true that the strings sound the same every time. And why is that? Why is that? Well, a couple of examples, like, let's look at extremes. Like, if I make a guitar out of piece of wood that has been just cut down, it's like not dried, it's like wet. I make the guitar out of that and put the strings on it, it won't vibrate that much. It sounds like kind of like a wet sock, when I strum that chord. The strings are gonna sound just it. In that case, the less the anything moves in the body and the neck of the guitar, in that situation, you kind of only hear the string, what's going on in string. Or if the guitar is made of rock that doesn't vibrate at all. And then the other extreme is that I make another guitar out of dry, lightweight, suitable material for making a sensitive, vibrating, dynamic electric guitar. Then, depending on the features, on the mechanical features, of those materials and the hardware and all of that's going on, I could then hear a sound that I'm taking that chord and I'm hearing like different kinds of experience, that, oh, this is very loud guitar, this is very muddy guitar, this is great low end, this is very bright, or something like that. So guitars sound different, and the strings sound different. And why is this happening is that, because the energy comes from my fingers. When I play, I hear the sound waves and I feel the vibrations. And I'm also hearing the sound waves that, feed back from the body and neck to the strings. Because when the strings make the neck and the body vibrate, that affects to how the strings actually sound. Because there are certain frequencies that are coupling, others that are canceling. And sometimes I've called that like a resonance footprint of an electric guitar. That what's going on without the amplifier being hooked up into the situation. So I think you're with me so far. So when an electric guitar is unplugged, it's very clear for anybody. You don't need to be like have super ears to hear the differences of an electric guitar unplugged. And I'm noticing there's comments appearing to the screen, and I'm not going to go to that yet. You can maybe hold your comments for a little while until we get to the end of this, so that I don't get lost with all of it. Yeah. Anyways, so we're moving on now to the next scenario. Because the topic today: where does the sound of the electric guitar come from? So first we were talking about the unplugged sound, and now when I'm plugging in the guitar, what changes? What happens? It's a whole different scenario, because now we don't talk about anymore. I mean, the musical instrument that we're playing is not anymore only the guitar. The musical instrument that we're playing is the whole signal chain that is hooked into that guitar. Everything affects that sound. So to keep things as simple as possible, we don't have anything else than the cable and the amplifier here. We don't have a pedal board with stuff. So we plug in the guitar, and let's say, for clarity's sake, because this is like, there's no black and white, and there's no truths carved in stone. There's not like one single way that it works, because everything affects. But for to keep things as simple as possible, let's say I turn up the volume so high that I can't hear the acoustic guitar sound. The acoustic sound, the kind of strings, the kind of, when you're playing with low volume and you hear both, you hear the amplifier and you hear what's happening unplugged. But let's put it up so that we don't hear the acoustic guitar sound. Now we're hearing something else. So what am I now hearing? It's not the guitar what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the signal chain. I'm hearing all sorts of things, So that vibration of the strings when I take that chord, and all that stuff that happens unplugged, happens still plugged. All that coupling and canceling of frequencies that make the strings sound different is still happening. I just can't hear it. Cause all that stuff that is happening by the resonance footprint. And this string, the way the string vibrates, that moves the magnetic flux of the pickup and generates a signal that then transmits to the amplifier through the guitar cable. And the amplifier does what it's supposed to do. It amplifies the signal and pushes it. The amplifier pushes that signal that came from the strings, coupled, decoupled, whatever happens with the body and the neck, make the strings vibrate a certain way, differently from if they were attached to a piece of rock. Pickup picks that up, puts to the cable, amplifies, pushes it to the speaker element and out to the room where I'm playing the guitar. So what I'm now experiencing is it's like a more complex phenomenon. It's the sound is shaped by the amplifier and the speaker element, the speaker cabinet, the room I'm in, and also by the volume level. So, and the volume level, when we're loud, I don't only hear it, I also feel it in my body because it's the sound waves are kind of moving. They're moving everything. They're vibrating the whole room in a way. And now we get to that kind of next point where because when I take that, I take that same chord as I did unplugged, and now I'm plugged and I'm playing loud and I'm like so, and I kind of, if the guitar had a strong, let's say the guitar has a strong mid push unplugged, I can still hear that character singing through the amplified sound in the room. And if I turn up the volume even more, it feels like that mid push just increases. It just becomes more and more prominent. So what is happening there? Because it's now we're talking about another kind of, we have the resonance footprint from the actual guitar, but I don't know if there's most likely some kind of official terms for these things, but I don't know what they are. So I've just kind of come up with another term that I call the acoustic feedback, meaning that the sound waves are firing to the room. They're making the guitar vibrate more. So it's not only the strings, because in the unplugged situation, remember, all the energy that moved the guitar came from my fingers. But now it's not anymore true. There comes energy from my fingers, but there's coming that loud sound from the speaker element, from the speaker cabinet to the room that also starts moving the guitar. So there's energy coming into the guitar from two directions, from the strings and from the room. So this is what's going on. Yeah. So actually, you could think that there's actually kind of three ways the strings are vibrating. My fingers, the speaker element, the sound from the room, and then the sound in the room makes the strings also move more, but then also they make the sound that comes from the speaker element makes the neck and the body and the guitar as an object move more. That feeds more of that resonance footprint into the strings. So there's kind of coming energy from three different directions into the string that then all the time is picked up, the magnetic flux picked up by the pickup. And so it becomes this acoustic feedback element. Yeah. Yeah, so that's basically what's happening with the guitar. And And understanding this might be helpful when looking at the situation where you're not happy with your instrument. Because let's say, you know, let's say I have a similar guitar as this. Not this one, because this sounds actually great. This doesn't sound like crap. But if I have a similar guitar and that sounds very muddy or very dark, and so I'm thinking that, oh, maybe I should change the pickups. Well, I say maybe you should change the strings first. And after changing strings, if you still have that same problem, you should listen to the guitar unplugged and compare the sound unplugged, plugged. Is the problem, is the muddiness in the pickup, is it only in the acoustic sound? I mean, sorry, is it only in the amplified sound? Is it also unplugged? Is it muddy sounding guitar also unplugged? Typically the situation is when you have a kind of very dark sounding electric guitar is that it's very dark sounding unplugged. And then you can spend as much as you want to expensive pickups, but I'm sorry, it doesn't change the picture too much. You can kind of try to manipulate the frequency response, what's coming out of the speaker with changing pickups of such a guitar. But if that guitar doesn't have the frequencies that are missing, if it doesn't have it, it doesn't have it. And you can't, there's no pickup that can invent those missing frequencies. And it's true with all kinds of things. You have a guitar that you know, let's say that it's very, very bright sounding, and that it lacks bass, it lacks the kind of low end, low register. You can up to a point, pickups can fix a problem if there is those frequencies to fix, and the because what you can do with the different pickups choices is kind of EQing, or with the power of the pickups you can kind of try to push more. Okay, now I'm gonna start looking at some of the questions. There's come quite many already, so bear with me a moment. Great, there's a lot of people here. Mibu is here, Antti is here. I already said hello to you. Shaggy's faction from Ikalinen. Interesting. Familiar face, maybe, if I would see your face. And Stuart here from Sun Bear Pickups. Hey, so true. A great set of pickups can only help translate the sound of the guitar, and in a truly wonderful guitar, that's really all you want. Yeah, so I can talk I agree, and this is also something I will talk in a bit about my experience of different kinds of pickups and what can you do with pickups, and why is changing pickups, different types of pickups, why is it useful? Okay, let's go. Sean Miller is here. Hey, bucket of noises. I experienced something very weird with my whoops, what did I do? I think I just poured my coffee on my keyboard. Shit. Okay. Just a second. Trying to fix. My keyboard started wanting to do, after I poured the cup of coffee on it, it started wanting to do all kinds of things. Emma, if you're around, can you come here to help a little? Sorry, guys. I think I need to buy a new keyboard. Shit. It's soaking. Okay. Welcome. Can you, we'll just, hey. I need some more paper. This is very, very much coffee here. Sorry, guys. Live situation, emergency situation. But luckily, it was just the keyboard. It wasn't a laptop, so that would have been bad. Back to where was I? I was somewhere here. Bucket of noise. I experienced something very weird with my Tribe Telecaster, hollow metal body and wooden neck. It vibrates massively. The pickups don't clear up when I turn down the pots. Well, there we are talking about now clearly a situation that is pickup related, I would say. It's pickup related, or it can be your a pot. It could be the potential meters, that maybe they're linear, or maybe there's something with the logarithmic curve of those pots. But I would rather say that it could be your pickups. And now again, I want to remind you that when we are dealing with the plugged sound, the electric amplified sound, it is really the whole signal chain that we're hearing. Depending, okay, if there's so many different scenarios. You plug in your guitar to a modeled amplifier that goes to the interface that goes to your computer or whatever. That's one scenario, but we're not now focusing into the kind of old school scenario where you have an amplifier and the sound shoots into that room, and so everything kind of matters. And the better you kind of know your whole signal chain, your amplifier, even the cable. What does cables do to the sound? Because a cable with very low, high quality cable with low capacitance makes the guitar sound totally different from a cheap cable that has higher capacitance and so on. And sometimes when somebody might have adjusted the everything perfect, and then you change the cable and it's kind of fucked. And that kind of things happen. So for some person, some might feel that expensive cable made the sound worse, because now it's crispier and you can kind of hear better. There's more detail now with the better quality cable. And again, there's no right or wrong. So if the cheap cable sounds better to you, keep using the cheap cable as long as it lasts. There is no right or wrong here. Okay, Hannu, hey. The sound also differs even with the same pickup if you place it in a different position of the body. Yeah, absolutely, because when we're talking about the pickups and the point where the pickup hears the strings at, and it picks up the signal from this spot or this spot. I mean, a lot of that softness you're hearing when you're moving from your bridge pickup to your neck pickup, it's not because they are so different pickups, but because the pickup is situated here. The further it is from or let's say the closer the pickup is to the bridge, the kind of sharper and edgier sounding it becomes. And the further it moves, the softer it becomes. If it would be here right in the middle of the vibrating string with an open string, it would sound massive. But it's not very easy to put a pickup there. And I don't know how it would sound anyway. Maybe it wouldn't sound like a guitar. volume on the pots. Wait a minute, what's happening here? Hey, from Oldenburg, hello. Do you feel that changing the stock pickups in the Unicorn Classic would be kind of a sacrilege? No, absolutely not. So these are tools. For some they're toys, for some they're tools. Anybody, you know, maybe for somebody they're like sacred items that you shouldn't touch, and that's all fine too. But personally, I'm all for experimenting. So if you have a guitar that you like very much, but you somehow want to experiment the sound, of course, go ahead, because subtleties, you know, the more your ear becomes trained, the more you're starting to hear the differences. It's same with the playability. Like yesterday, we were talking about the same thing. You know, the more you spend time and the more sort of meditate guitar, and the guitar becomes part of you and sort of like an extension of your body, and you start kind of really understanding what's going on. The better you understand, then also what kind of changes would be good and what kind of changes would be like, yeah, bucket of noises. I had once a problem with one guitar. The volume pot was kind of under spec. 400K problem solved. Exactly. That's what you can do. The pickups, Mibu says, the pickups transduce also the resonance of the body, not only the strings. So you get a mix of string sound and part of the wood vibration intonation. Yeah, that's what I've been talking about. Exactly the same thing. Stuart, you're answering to bucket of noise. Could be the dynamic range of the pickups or the pots. Yeah, you're talking about the same thing I commented later on too. Treble bleed, yes, treble bleed would be one way. Can we talk a second about treble bleed? Not everybody necessarily knows what treble bleed means. Treble bleed is a little passive trickery that we can do inside a guitar. We can add a treble bleed to a volume. It means there can be many kinds of values for the capacitor and resistor that can be used for a little bit different effect. But what it does is that when you have a pot like this and you start dialing it down, because this is also, it's basically it's a resistor, adjustable resistor. So what happens is that when I start dialing it down, the sound gets a bit muddier, warmer. And one way to prevent that from happening is a treble bleed passive thingy put into the volume pot. So it kind of evens out the function of the pot. But it has to be said that when you have put that treble bleed, it also cuts off slightly your kind of the lowest end of the signal. It's possible to experiment with different values, yes, you can make it sound better, but there comes some kind of an element to the guitar that with a treble bleed that might not be pleasing to everyone who is very particular about their guitar sounding. So we've tried to kind of, we put treble bleeds when the customers want it, and for some players it's really essential that they have it because from the way they use the volume. But as a kind of default setting, we're trying to do without treble bleed, and instead we do a type of 50s wiring. It's called 50s wiring. You can Google it, you can find it. That kind of connects the tone pot a little bit differently to the volume pot, and this kind of decreases the the muddying down effect a tiny bit. I mean, it does get warmer when I dial down the volume knob in our guitars without the treble bleed, but for many players that's also like what they want. I mean, that's what you want when it's cranked full on. Because one way, very useful way of kind of the way I, for example, my guitar, when I do my setup with my amplifier and with my pedal board and stuff, I kind of dial the sounds so that the volume is not on 10, it's on 8 when I do all the dialing. So I put all the treble, everything I put when the volume is on 8. And that's my kind of the basic, the crunch, the rhythm sound that I'm looking for. And so I have there on the volume knob, I have that extra that is actually very nice at a situation where you want the guitar to push more and to cut through more. And then you get that more, not only a little bit louder, but you get that extra crispiness when you dial up, because you kind of took that all into account when setting your equipment. From Oldenburg, don't get me wrong, I love the resonant musical tone coming out of my Unicorn. Just wonder if there's a pickup with more bottom ender punch. Yes. So one guy, you could talk to Harry Heusel about it, or you could call to Stuart from, you can see him here in the chat. Where are you, Stuart? I saw you just a moment ago. Stuart, there you are. Stuart from Sunbear Pickups. You could talk to him about it. But I mean, of course, I mean, this is something that you can do if you want more bottom end, if you want, because that guitar, I know the Unicorn with the materials that it's been built, it has like a healthy sounding acoustic, like unplugged, healthy sounding guitar. And that's when we get to the kind of tweaking that sound with different kinds of pickups. When you have a healthy sounding guitar and you want to tweak it, you know, then you just, there is an endless amount of pickup options in the world to experiment with, where you can increase things, and you want more punch. Okay, maybe you want a little bit higher output pickups. From Harry Heusel's selection, I know that, for example, his Hot, it's called Hot humbucker. A matched set of those would be kind of a step up to that direction from Harry. Or any other. I mean, there are so many great guitar pickup makers. Stuart among them, who is here. So yeah, so okay, let me, I'll take just a moment to read what's going on here. Christian is asking, Terve Juha, Terve Christian. Let's do this in English anyways. What is your view on direct to the body mounted pickups versus pickups mounted in a frame or pickguard? Is there really a difference? There is a slight difference. And I think it where it comes from is that when we were talking earlier about the amplified situation where the whole room vibrates and you kind of feed back energy into the guitar from the room, from the speaker cabinet. This makes the whole instrument vibrate, including the pickup. I mean, the pickup vibrates also acoustically, mechanically in its cavity, depending on how it's mounted to the body. And there is one thing that kind of affects, and also kind of related to this this scenario that you were, Christian, mentioning is also that depending on the kind of, if you do have a pickup ring, the pickup is mounted into a pickup ring. If that pickup ring is made of metal, especially if it's made of steel, the most common situation here would be a Telecaster bridge, where the bridge pickup is actually integrated into the bridge. And in a vintage style Telecaster bridge, that bridge plate is made of just sheet metal. I mean sheet of steel, which is a magnetic material. So if you have a metal pickup ring that is magnetic, the pickup ring also affects to the magnetic flux. It kind of manipulates it, alters it, and that's part of the Telecaster twang sound. Or if you want to experiment, like we have in some of our models, we have something that we call the twang ring. It's like a ring that we put to a bridge pickup, a steel ring, and of magnetic material to create the same edgy effect to a pickup. So the same guitar, the same pickup without that twang ring and with that twang ring sounds different. The bridge pickup sounds different because that ring affects to the sound. Yeah. Stuart says, absolutely agree, Juha. You can pull certain existing frequencies out into a higher precision in the mix, but you can't create what isn't there. That's right. That's how it is. Yeah, let's see. Moving on here. Somebody talks about valve buckers here. Do they come with optional gold hardware? Yes, they do, but let's not talk about valve buckers now. Let's talk about it in another chat. Or if we talk about valve bucker from some perspective, then it should be from this. That what does? I think it's too complicated. It kind of gets lost here. Shaggy's faction: opinion and experience with active pickups versus passive pickups, and that activates allegedly sound the same way in every guitar. Yeah. Yeah, it's actually true that that a typical active pickup. I have nothing against, like, I'm mentioning here a brand, EMG, and I have nothing against them. They are great pickups for a lot of applications, and they actually the fact that they have this tendency of sounding more the same in different guitars is a positive thing for a lot of players, especially in the metal scene, where the sound is created in so many. I mean, still the actual instrument has a meaning of, or like a significance of what type of wood or whatever, because it affects to the sustain, it affects to the stability, to the playability, all these things, and the whole experience of that musical instrument being inspiring to the player, which is kind of the point. But for example, in live situations, if you're playing in a metal band, you might want to prefer the fact that EMG in some situations, and many situations for a lot of players, that's the right way to go, where you kind of can control, and you look for that controlled and most typically very compressed sound. And that's one thing that, the more when we take that electric guitar that has the pickup and you put it to an old school tube amplifier that is very dynamic, you have a dynamic guitar with not too high output pickups that kind of remain in that dynamic range, and you have a dynamic amplifier, and that whole setup is very musical, it's very sensitive, and it's kind of also very brutal, because you can hear the mistakes more also, and you can, the picking harder, you're picking not so hard, you can hear all that more, and you can hear all the nuances of the sound more. But the more we start to compress, the more the situation moves into kind of, the more you compress stuff and the more you process the sound, the less relevant the actual electric guitar materials and all this kind of cork sniffing stuff becomes. Sorry, I had to use that term. I've heard it from I've seen it some forums. So we're all these cork sniffers, I hear. Fine with me. Let's see. I'm skipping here. If I'm skipping your question, I'm sorry. But afterwards, I'm browsing through the whole chat. I'll try to get answers. So later, if I don't get to do it during this chat, we still have like 10, 15, 20 minutes to go. So let's see. Vincent, you're there. Hey, the Google agenda time zone was not set good. I'm late. Don't worry. You can see the rest of from the beginning later on, the recording. Glad to see you here. Enjoyed our Skype meeting earlier. It was really nice to see you and your wife and your dog to catch up after 10 long years. Let's see. Yeah, Stuart, often a good addition on a neck pickup if the player is doing a lot of looping in their playing but using a single channel. Yeah, this is all good information. I mean, yeah, nothing to add. What, Vincent? So you're fresh in the chat. Let's take your question. What is a good tuner to check for intonation and how to do it on Floyd Rose trem system? I can't go in this chat to the mechanics of how to do the setup in the Floyd Rose, the intonation. That would take too long. I'm sorry about that. We have to do another chat dedicated to this, and I have Emma there taking notes of all the questions of these chats, and so we will have more live Q&As coming. There's no doubt about that. We'll try to make it a weekly thing. I'm not promising anything yet, but we're playing with the thought if it will be a weekly, maybe something, I don't know, weekly Wednesday live Q&A or something. But a good tuner, you need a tuner that can tune that has the ability to tune your guitar accurately. So one of the strobe modeling tuners would be good for that. There is probably, I mean, there's so many products on the market that it's just overwhelming. But I'm going to mention again a brand or two that I've been using. Peterson makes good stuff. So Peterson strobe tuners. I mean, we have downstairs we have one of those heavy big strobe tuners that is like $1,000 or something. So you don't need to get that, because it's old technology, and nowadays digital technology can do what they do. But we have one of those because it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to do the intonation with that. Maybe the intonation will sound better, even though it's just the same. It's kind of like my Finnish mark yesterday. Just can't kind of let that go. Anyway, so Peterson makes good stuff, and also you don't necessarily need to buy a tuner these days. You can just download a tuner app to your smartphone or your iPad, your computer. Peterson has those as well. I have one here installed into my iPhone. So I mean, Peterson strobe look for Peterson strobe tuners from the App Store, and that's one option. But the most common, actually, I'm going to mention another brand. Not because I'm affiliated with these brands in any way whatsoever, but there is a company in the USA. It's Sonic Research, and they have a gadget called Turbo Tuner. It's a floor pedal, and it's really wonderful, accurate, and that's what I have on my pedal boards, and I have on my workbench, and I have those laying around here and there. They're great. So that's my favorite, personal favorite tuner, Sonic Research Turbo Tuner. Yeah, that's very accurate. I mean, I could talk hour or 2 hours about tuners and why the cheaper tuners, and not necessarily that it's cheaper tuners, but kind of tuners that don't track the different harmonic layers like the strobe tuners or the modeling strobe tuners do. They're just not accurate enough, and I could make another chat about that. Maybe Emma will write it down there, so we talk about that later. Talk about tuners, talk about intonations. Is it true that treble bleed works only or better with a certain type of wiring, no tone pot or something? Not true. I think you can make the treble bleed work in a lot of different applications. It's just that you need to then have someone do the treble bleed for you who knows what he's doing, so that they can choose different kinds of, because it's a passive circuit of typically consisting one resistor and one capacitor, and changing the values of those changes the situation. So there is basically, when you're building the treble bleed, there's the pickup, there's the potentiometer, and there's the treble bleed. Those three items are to be played with. If somebody says that the treble bleed doesn't work in this guitar or with this pickup, maybe it's the pot that was wrong for the treble bleed to work. And I don't mean only wrong that the DC resistance of the pot is 250K or 500K like that, but different brand pots are different. The logarithmic curve, and if you have a linear volume pot put into your guitar, that sometimes, unfortunately, it's very uninspiring usually to use, because all the action happens at one end of the pot. There's nothing going on, and then whip, everything goes. So yeah. Yeah. Alnico 3 based PAF style pickups in the Unicorn Stewart from Sun Bear Pickups was a joy. Glad to hear. Yeah, Poo Ninja, so many options. It's a great time to be a guitarist. You nailed it. That's we're living the golden era. We're living the golden era of being a guitarist. Yeah, that's right. Up to a point where sometimes it's really overwhelming because there's so much stuff. There's something for you to read if you want to read about this. There's a book called Paradox of Choice. We're living that time. We're living that time where we have so many choices that it sometimes paralyzes, and you can't make any choice anymore. Yeah. Tuomas, this may be a bit off topic, but what do you think about why certain electric guitars ring loud acoustically and some not? For example, SG seem to vary a lot from a guitar to another. Yeah, well, it's totally not off topic. I think it's very much in the topic, and this is plain and simple. The wood materials and the design of the instrument that's going on here, and that's what makes the difference. I mean, okay, you can always, when this, you pick up a guitar and it doesn't ring well, first thing is change new strings. People change strings, tend to change strings not enough. I mean, strings should be changed more often than you think. And I'm doing the same mistake all the time. I have all the time 2 old strings in my own personal guitars. So yeah, but it's the wood, and this isn't, I mean, to go deeper in the, Tuomas, your question about why why certain electric guitars ring louder. It's another chat. But yeah, some kind of, you could think that, say that, like on a general level, the electric guitar strings, they don't have the capacity in them to, when you're hitting the strings, the body and the neck need to be pretty sensitive to react to that amount of energy that the strings get from my fingers. I mean, it's not a whole lot of energy, and it's not a whole lot of movement that is going on. And so if the guitar is built of type of wood that is, it's not kind of starting to resonate, or isn't sensitive in its way it resonates, it's not going to do much. And then often the experience for me as a player that picks up that guitar, it could be like, just depending on the personality, but typically, I mean, not all of guitarists, which is fine. I mean, and there's no right or wrong, and it's more like a personality thing, that for a lot of players, they're not very tech savvy people, that and don't need to be. You play, you create the music. That's the really the your job. And my job is then, and my kind, the guitar techs and luthiers. That's another golden era we're living. So there's so much talent and so much talented people out there available everywhere in the world. So you can always find help to the technical issues. Like, if you have something that, okay, you take that guitar and it's somehow uninspiring, and you can't put your finger on it. Why is it what doesn't that instrument inspire you to play? Then it's good time, if you change new strings and it still doesn't inspire you, and you kind of lost with it, then take it to someone who knows. Yeah. And sometimes changing pickups helps, and often it doesn't. Yeah. I remember, it's very rare, but that this thing has happened, but I'll tell you a little story here about a guitar that we built to a customer, and this is like 15 years ago or something. And this guitar just didn't cut this was for a professional player, and the guitar just didn't cut through in the mix in the band. It just didn't. And it was weird. He tried to kind of adjust his signal chain, whatever he tried to do, and then he came back to me that this just doesn't, he can't hear the guitar. That it's as loud as the other guitars, but when he picks this guitar, it just doesn't cut through. And so we analyzed the situation, what's happening, and this is from my kind of earlier time of my career, which is kind of, I mean, I've learned a lot of things the hard way, and this guitar just didn't, I mean, I didn't kind of realize it at the time. I was a rookie in the business at that time. So I didn't realize that the first thing should have been that I'm listening to the guitar acoustically, and kind of understanding that, and that the mid-range is just not there. And then we tried to change another set of pickups, and so on and so on, and I think a third set of pickups, and no, it didn't fix itself. And then we, in the end, we thought that shit, we'll make a new body to the guitar, and it still didn't change. Then we made a new neck to the guitar, and then the problem dissolved. So in that occasion, that kind of lost mid-range was something to do with that neck. There was something funny with that neck going on. So yeah, that's one of those things that can happen. Vincent, your pickups are awesome. The single coil on my guitar seems to vibrate with the string. The magnetics involved with the pickup setup made for me so special. I see. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're getting to the close of this. Mibu, thank you. If you have 250K on the humbucker position, include a 250K resistor in series. That's one way. Also, Mr. Sisek. Also, other tone twist systems for pickups exists. Opposite to usual pots and caps, like Richard Blackmore's box, or box of a guy from Manowar. Maybe not a pot, but variable coil inside. Yeah, there is all kinds of way, all kinds of trickery, all kinds of trickery. Mibu says, an interesting fact. Jörg Tandler told me that a guitar made of wood parts correctly glued can better resonate than ones out of a single piece. What do you think, Juha? Well, now we are moving to the realm of very fine nuances that is, in my opinion, impossible for me to confirm that statement. For the simple reason that every single piece of wood is slightly different from each other. And if I'm thinking that I have a one-piece body, that I then cut that particular body to two pieces and glue it together with the greatest wood glue on the planet, does that improve the sound of that piece of wood? We would need to go deeper into the science of that. And before saying anything to that, I'm the kind of guy who I don't like to state this or that. Somebody should do a thesis on that in university, some technical university, and start measuring what happens. But I'm going to say, like one famous Finnish politician, I'm saying it in Finnish first. En ole puolestaan enkä vastaan, vaan pikemminkin päinvastoin. I'm not going to say who's the politician who has said that, but, you know, I don't agree or disagree, but rather vice versa. That's what politician talk, right? Mr. Sisek to Mibu, heard same about broken Les Paul head. When it's glued, it got better sound. It's possible. It's possible. But, you know, there's so many variables there. Maybe something else changed as well when the headstock got fixed. I don't know. We're over 1 hour now, so I'm starting to close in. I'm aware that I didn't answer to all the questions, but there was one particularly interesting question there by Stuart about potted and unpotted pickups, but I'm not going to answer to that now. I think it's such a fascinating topic as well that let's leave it hanging. Let's leave a cliffhanger to the next live Q&A, okay? So I'm going to start closing in. Thank you, people, that you've been here. A good amount of people have been listening to this live. I'm very glad. I've kind of been so nervous about this because I've never done it. So I'm thinking that nobody shows up and I need to do a monologue. So I'm very grateful to you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Vincent, we will say hi to Elias. Promise. Thank you, Mibu. From Toronto, Canada. Hello, big book something. I don't know, these names are so funny. Boston 81 just wanted to say hello. What about live Q&A to help upcoming luthiers to start their careers? There's another whole other type of swamp to step into, right? But we could do something. We could do something. Thank you so much, everybody. With Mr. Fast Fingers words, I respect this moment, and I've enjoyed this time greatly with you. And I hope you've had a great weekend now at the Holy Couch Guitar Show. It's been really fun and bizarre at the same time. I'm missing the physical contact with everybody, all the friends, all the old friends and the new friends, and to become friends and everyone. And I hope you all stayed healthy and your families have stayed healthy, and you stay healthy from now on too. And yeah, let's keep the wheels turning and wash your hands and all that stuff. And what else? And I'm getting also a message from someone, maybe it came from WhatsApp or whatever, that remember to tell people to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe the channel, share to your friends, like the post, and all that YouTuber stuff. I'm not so familiar with it yet, but yeah. Antti, hey, you're there too. Good to hear. Glad to hear your Mojo King is good. Great, all is good. So, people, have a great day. Talk to you soon again. Bye.